All right, let's talk about one of the biggest career decisions a young professional in India has to make. Should you go for a government job or jump into the private manufacturing sector? We're going to cut through all the noise and give you a real, no-nonsense comparison.
Come on, you've all heard this, right? It's probably the most common piece of advice from our parents and relatives. It's practically a national mantra, and it's all built around one big idea. Security is everything.
But we have to ask, is that advice still the gold standard? The world today, the economy, it's just a completely different beast than it was a generation ago. So let's actually stack these two paths up against each other based on facts, not just old beliefs.
Okay, let's get into it. We're going to break down this career divide piece by piece so you can get a super clear picture of which path really lines up with what you want. First up, the big one. The reason everyone talks about government jobs in the first place. Security. This is the bedrock of the whole argument, so let's start here. So the difference here is night and day. A government job, it's like a fortress. Your job is incredibly stable. Layoffs, especially during a recession, are almost unheard of. But in the private sector, your stability is directly tied to how well you perform and how well the company is doing. If the market for your product tanks, well, downsizing is a very real thing. So yeah, government wins on pure security, hands down. But as we're about to see, that security comes with a pretty big trade-off. Okay, let's follow that thread. What about the money? And maybe even more importantly, how fast do you actually learn and grow your skills in these two worlds? You know, there's this myth that government jobs always pay better, but it's way more complicated than that. In a government role, your salary grows on a very predictable schedule based on pay commissions and how long you've been there. In the private sector, though, it's more like a rocket ship, and the fuel is your own skill and performance. If you're a high flyer, your salary can skyrocket, and you could easily be earning more than your government-employed friends after about 10 or 15 years. But that's the key word, isn't it? Performance. And this slide really shows you why performance matters so much. Private manufacturing is where the rubber meets the road. You're learning real-world, high-demand skills because you have to. When a major controller on your production line goes down at 2 in the morning, you're the one who has to figure it out, and fast. That kind of pressure cooker environment forces you to learn and adapt at a crazy fast pace, something you just don't get in the same way in a more structured government job. So what does it actually feel like day to day? Let's talk about the vibe, the work pressure, and how much freedom you have to actually steer your own career. And here we have another huge contrast. Government jobs are famous for work-life balance. You know, fixed hours, a pretty clear set of responsibilities. But private manufacturing, it can be intense. Factories run around the clock, deadlines are aggressive, and as an engineer, when things go wrong, you're the first line of defense. That can mean some seriously long hours. So you're really choosing between a stable, predictable rhythm and a high-pressure, super dynamic environment. And that structure applies to your whole career path too. In government, think of your career as a straight ladder. You climb it step by step, mostly based on seniority, and it's pretty hard to jump over to a completely different department or change your role dramatically. Now look at this. The private sector is totally different. Your career path can be way more fluid. You can jump between companies, you could start in production, pivot to supply chain, and then maybe move into a specialized role in factory automation. Your career can branch out in all these different directions based on what you're good at and what you're interested in. All right, let's zoom out a bit. Forget the day-to-day for a second and look at the long game. How do these paths stack up when it comes to building wealth and, social standing? When it comes to creating serious wealth over your lifetime, the private sector usually has a clear edge. And here's why. Your pay isn't just your salary. It's also performance bonuses, maybe stock options, and you're getting exposure to the business world that could even help you start your own thing someday. A government job gives you that steady, reliable paycheck, for sure, but the potential to really multiply your wealth is just lower. In India, let's be real, a sarkari naukri has always carried this huge amount of social respect. It signals stability, predictability, security, all the things our families love. And that respect is definitely still there. But things are changing. Being a successful leader in a major private company, especially in a booming sector like manufacturing, is now seen as just as respectable, and for a lot of people, even more so. So after looking at all of this, the security, the money, the skills, the lifestyle, we finally get to the most important question. How in the world do you decide which path is the right one for you? Okay, this slide right here is basically the cheat sheet for this whole explainer. It's really simple. If what you value most is stability, a predictable schedule, and very low risk, then a government job is probably a fantastic choice for you. But if you're the kind of person who's hungry for faster growth, you want to constantly be learning new things, you want leadership opportunities, and you want a higher potential for income, then the private sector is probably calling your name. Neither is better. They're just different.
And that really brings us to the final, most important point. We get so hung up asking which job is better, but that's just the wrong question. The real question isn't about the job, it's about you. It's about your personality, your ambition, your goals. So, what kind of life do you actually want to build for yourself? Once you answer that, you'll know exactly which path to take.